going to walk non-violently and peacefully to let the nation and the world know that we are tired now. Yes, sir. We've lived with slavery and segregation 345 years. We waited a long time for freedom. Yes,
the work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has long been recognized each January. Of course, the nonviolent marches, or the attempts at nonviolent marches that those marchers brought, none of, in places like Selma. More recently, though, that work has been brought back to the public's consciousness.
And we stand here today in honor of you all, in honor of them. Not just in memory of them, not just in memory of Martin Luther King or in memory of Selma and what happened on the bridge, but to memorialize Martin Luther King as an idea and Selma as an idea of what can happen with strategy, with discipline, and with love.
Yesterday, Oprah Winfrey and the stars of the movie Selma came together in that Alabama community where 5 decades ago this spring, civil rights protesters were beaten and tear-gassed by state troopers as they sought equality. Today's marches in commemoration of the legacy of Dr. King surely had no violence, just a common hope that this would not be a nation of people judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. In his famous speech from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, though, before he got to the dream part, the Reverend talked about nonviolence. He said, quote, "In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred." Sadly, 2014 proved to be a test of race relations in this country, with bitterness and hatred sipped by many across racial lines because of sad moments in places like Ferguson, Missouri, and in New York City. This morning in Bryan, the annual march, a peaceful one, with people from across racial lines, pushed off from Sadie Thomas Park and went down Martin Luther King Street in Bryan over to Kemp Elementary School, where a program headlined by Texas A&M sociology professor Reuben May was held. Brazos County Commissioner Irma Cawley was also there, one of the organizers of the annual event, and she has a special connection to Dr. King in her heart. I spoke to both of them late this morning. There's a lot of music. It is a rocking atmosphere in here. You just got done with the walk, you as well. How did it go this year?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I believe we have had our largest number of marchers this year in the history of our march and celebration. So we're very excited.
Absolutely. And a lot of folks here to listen to you, Dr. May, as well. What's your message to the group on this Martin Luther King Day?
Well, I think that I want to express that we've come a long way and there's still lots to achieve. But we also have to take advantage of the opportunities we have now that Dr. King fought so hard for.
And you and your husband, the late Commissioner Kerry Cawley, were very obviously familiar. Can you go into the background and your time and your husband's time with Dr. King?
Well, of course, Kerry was older than I, so he had the history of marching with Dr. King and John Lewis in Alabama. And Kerry was instrumental, along with John Lewis, in organizing the Student Nonviolent Committee. They called it SNCC at the time. As a matter of fact, Kerry Cawley landed in Texas because there were threats on his life in Alabama as he was a student at Tuskegee, and he had started demonstrating. He and John Lewis had grown up together in Pike County, Alabama, and it wasn't very popular to step out and take a stand with Dr. King. So that's how Kerry came to Texas.
Profound impact that Dr. King must have had on your life and obviously on Kerry's as well. Now, so many years later, what's the impact of that message today?
Well, I think that I, in particular, attempt to live the dream. I am as involved as I can be in my community. I think it's important that we make a difference. I think it's very important that our students, our young people are educated, that we are trained and we are productive citizens, able to sit at the table, as he said, equal to anyone else. And I can remember Dr. King, although I was young, my mother allowed us to march in Houston. I was raised in Harris County. So I remember sitting in at the Harris County jail, first time my mother ever allowed us to to spend the night somewhere other than home. But we did it as young kids because it was important. We were taught that standing up for what is right is a good thing, and that's why I'm impacted. So, along with my shero, Barbara Jordan, I grew up in Fifth Ward, so I had some role models, and I've tried to be a role model. Not that, I'm anyone special, but I believe that I can stand and I can speak for myself because Dr. King taught us and impacted my life.
Sounds like a good translation of the message going forward. What is the translation, I guess, of the message? Is it the same message today, or have world events in your mind changed where Dr. King's message has gone?
Well, I think because of the time we're in now, we often think of Dr. King's legacy in a historical sense, but there's so many things showing us today that there's relevance for what he had to say then that's important for now. And a lot of people think about Dr. King as happening very long ago, but my mother was actually 7 months pregnant with me when she marched, and people look at me and they say, "You're a young guy." So it's important that we communicate to young people that lots of things that he said about us moving forward, grasping hold, fighting injustice, pushing for equality is very relevant today. In fact, my speech today is called Upgrade the Dream, because I want folks to understand that those things that he said, the principles are there, but we need to bring them and update them so that we can act on them today.
2014 really brought to light a number of issues that were still maybe underlying,
yes,
and just brought to the forefront with some horrible circumstances. What did 2014, in your mind, teach us going forward and maybe updating that dream?
Yeah, well, I think there's a large population whose voice is not necessarily heard. As an African American, there are things that I experience every day that most people don't hear about. And so I could definitely relate to the frustrations that other people in other parts of the country have about injustice that goes on with them. So it's not a new thing, it's just that the voices of a lot of people are muted. And so they're starting to be heard, and we need to actually act collectively to make this place a better place, That's the idea.
And certainly marches are good demonstrations, but there are, as you said, things that we can do in our daily lives to make sure that everybody has good lives and equal lives and things like that.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Dr. May, thank you very much as well.